Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, and some people claim there's a business manager to blame. Hi, this is Jeff Marsacci, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Before we dig into today's topic, please help us get out solid, accurate information on estate planning and Medicaid planning by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Unfortunately, the algorithms just tend to favor videos that tell people what they want to hear instead of what is actually true. If you want us to get the truth out there about estate and Medicaid planning information, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Unfortunately, today we are going to talk about some trouble in paradise. There is an estate planning mess brewing around Jimmy Buffett's estate. And there's one solid reason for this that we're going to get to, and it may not be what you think. All right, so Jimmy Buffett left behind a $275 million estate. It's now all tangled up in lawsuits. Why? He made one critical mistake that too many people are looking at when they're creating a trust. So he did do a revocable living trust. He did have it set up so that he could leave everything or most of everything to his spouse, but held in trust for her benefit. Now, let me talk a little bit about how these marital trusts are often working. It's going to provide the net income to that surviving spouse for the remainder of their lifetime, but it's not going to give them 100% total access to do whatever they want with the principal of it. Okay. So obviously he didn't want his wife Jane to just be able to take everything and do whatever she wanted. So it was in this marital trust. Well, all right, who's the trustee? This is where the problem is, and we're going to break it down in plain English. The problem is co-trustees. So he named his wife Jane and his longtime business manager, Richard Mosenter. And forgive me if I'm getting that name wrong, Mosenter. So they're now accusing each other in court of being uncooperative, greedy, secretive. So the spouse, the surviving spouse, is claiming that he's just taking $1.7 million a year in fees and he's withholding all this information from me, and she thinks he's withholding income from her. Okay, well, Mosenter is saying that Jane is interfering, she's not fulfilling her fiduciary duties, and so she's just not being cooperative in getting this stuff done, so it's her fault. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, and some people claim there's a business manager to blame for all this. So this is not highlighting, as I've seen in some articles, oh, here's the problem with marital trusts. It's not the problem with the trust. The problem is with co-trustees. And this is something I tell my clients all the time. Don't name co-trustees. And they give a lot of reasons why they're thinking of doing co-trustees. Well, I want to keep the peace, or I want to balance control. I want some kind of spreading the work around. We're going to talk about all of these one by one. If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel. But the simple fact is, if you are going to trust someone to be a trustee, you should just be naming them as trustee on their own. This way you've got one person, they're in charge, and you're trusting them to fulfill the terms of the trust, and that's the end of it. Now, if you don't trust anyone 100%, and again, this is another thing with co-trustees, you don't trust any of them 100%, I want a co-trustee so they can keep an eye on things. You probably shouldn't have them listed as a co-trustee or even a trustee. Sometimes, especially with a large estate like Jimmy Buffett's, $275 million, just have a professional or a corporate trustee. The other thing is when you're forcing people who don't already get along, it's just, hey, they'll work it out. It's rarely ending well. All right. So when I'm seeing this with my own clients, and not the $275 million estate for Jimmy Buffett. I hear that parents who have multiple children, they just want them all to be co-trustees. They want family unity. It's going to bring them all closer. It doesn't happen. In fact, it usually creates more conflict and it hurts the beneficiaries. If people don't get along now, don't expect that to change after you're gone, because you're making them co-trustees and making them work with each other. It doesn't happen. Another big reason that a lot of my clients look at co-trustees is they want to spread the work around. Look, this just sounds like it's an awful lot. So if we have 3 co-trustees, one person can do this, one person can do that, the other can do that. That's just not the way it ends up working in reality. Unfortunately, there are a lot, no matter what you put into the trust document itself. If you say, well, I've got 3 co-trustees, but only one has to sign paperwork. Financial institutions are not going to go with that. And that's because if one person shows up, I'm going to pull this money out and I'm going to move it over here. Well, the trust says only one has to sign off on it. And then the other 2 said, look, the 3 of us voted and the 2 of us said, no, it doesn't move. You bank, you financial institution, you did something wrong. And now they're being drawn into all of this drama that they didn't have any need to be in. They're going to make everybody sign everything. So instead of spreading that work around, 1/3 here, 1/3 here, 1/3 there, you've just tripled the amount of paperwork that needs to get done because everybody's going to have to sign everything. It doesn't work. What if there's disagreement? Again, you got to have some kind of mechanism for settling that disagreement. And Lord forbid your trust isn't good enough that it says, well, just go ahead and take it to court. It's just going to create more delays, more chances at disagreement, and more stress. All right, so what is a smarter option now? If you have this type of potential conflict and you don't have one person at a time, you can choose a corporate trustee. All right, so for a corporate trustee, basically we have our recommendations that we have. If you're working with a financial advisor, they may have a specific firm or a trust company that they're looking at, but generally it's trust companies. Now, so just as a little bit of an aside here, I sometimes hear, well, the bank has a trust department and they should be able to handle it. I'm not going to say all, because it's not all, but an awful lot of banks kind of operate the same way. They're going to liquidate everything, put it into bank CDs in their bank, which I kind of look at as a conflict of interest because you're kind of putting all the eggs in one basket, but you're putting it into the basket that's most beneficial for the bank, because now they can say on their balance sheet, oh, look at all of these assets that our trust department is managing, and it's being managed through the bank. And now there might be very little interest in there, but hey, it's approved. Trust companies don't tend to do things that way. They tend to do an investment strategy that's most beneficial to the beneficiaries. So, but if you do have a trust company, look, all that emotion is taken out of it. They're going to follow the trust terms, remain neutral. They're not part of the family drama. And legally, as a fiduciary, it's not their part to get involved in it. So, yeah, they're going to charge fees, but it's not an instance where they're going to start suing each other or start withholding distributions out of spite. So, this is a route that Jimmy Buffett probably should have really taken a look at, because the end result now is that his wife and his business manager, they're just fighting with each other. And the biggest part of the empire that Jimmy Buffett had and left for his estate, some of it's the music, but an awful lot of it is the Margaritaville restaurants and the merchandise that goes along with it. And that kind of business ebbs and flows. There would have been nothing wrong with having the trust company be the actual trustee, but also carving in that here's the manager for these specific business assets. and they can only be removed for cause. That would have been a very good, elegant solution. And it's not like his attorneys wouldn't have known how to do that. All right. So the trustee, this is one thing that's kind of constant, but maybe lacking here, again, because of the drama around it. The trustee's job is to follow the terms of the trust, not what they think a person would have wanted. So I see this with beneficiaries all the time, especially if they don't like what they got in the trust. Oh, I am absolutely certain that my father would have wanted me to have more. Every other beneficiary, I know he kind of loved me best. I don't tell my siblings that, but he definitely would have left me more. Look, what matters is what the terms of the trust are, and as a fiduciary, you're executing that. So in Jimmy Buffett's case, she's claiming that the trust only pays her $2 million a year. And that's just not enough for her expenses. All right, let's take a look at that. If she had expenses to maintain her standard of living through a traditional marital trust, I haven't seen the document, I'm assuming this is a traditional marital trust, and let's just say the income isn't enough, well, now it's kind of the duty of the trustee to reach into the principal to help maintain the standard of living. I know, $2 million a year. Oh, that's just not enough for me. Well, okay, she's living a different lifestyle. Let's just say she needed $3 million a year, and that's what her lifestyle was before. It's the trustee's job to help her maintain that standard of living. Find that extra million, liquidate assets or investments or whatever you have to in order to get that money over to her. That's what the trustee is supposed to do. Now, if her standard of living prior to Jimmy Buffett passing on was she needed 1.5 million a year, and now she's getting 2, and she's demanding 3. That's not maintaining the standard of living. That's trying to raise it, and that's not something that the trustee has to do. But as a marital trust, all the net income is typically going to the spouse, just because the trust tax rates are generally a lot higher than an individual's tax rate. Now, all of this really just depends on what the trust says. Again, family drama around everything. You get co-trustees, there's trustee drama, one person at a time. And if you can't have that one person, if you don't trust any one particular person to take over this, especially with an estate of $275 million, you're going to want a corporate trustee. So Buffett had all of the right tools out there. He had a trust-based plan. He had professionals. There were clear instructions, but by naming co-trustees who later ended up clashing, it's thrown everything into court. So who wins when an estate gets into court? The lawyers. That's the end of it. So when you're looking at your estate plan, you're looking at who you want named as trustees and fiduciaries. Don't just, I want to avoid hurting people's feelings, and I can't not name this person as a trustee because it'll hurt them. No, you're looking for the best person for the job. Plan for reality, not what you hope people will become. And I've seen this too. I want the 3 kids who don't get along and fight all the time. We're going to make them co-trustees, and it's going to be like the end of a Hallmark movie. They're all going to come together, and they're all going to be in harmony, and they'll live happily ever after. Nope, that estate, that trust, it's all going to fall apart. So, again, plan for reality, not what you hope people will become. All right, so what are these takeaways? If your estate plan includes co-trustees, it's time to revisit your decisions. One poor choice could cost your family years and years of stress, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in Jimmy Buffett's case, millions in fees going to the lawyers to duke it out. If you're in North Carolina and you're interested in updating your plan, then please let us know. You can check the law firm out at www.livingtrustlawfirm.com. and we can set up a discovery call and see if there's anything that we can do to help. But in North Carolina or elsewhere, you can simply check out our free course at freetrustcourse.com. Again, freetrustcourse.com. And that could just give you some valuable information on estate planning to make sure you're not making any of the missteps that Jimmy Buffett did. All right. So as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.